Rija.
Yes, I can't find the shared option.
Shrija ji, please accept our request to join as a panelist. Rejoin and you'll be able to find the share button.
Okay, thank you.
In the meanwhile, do we only have Shrija ji's presentation today? Is anybody else willing to present? Please do let us know. It's already 5:45.
Also, if you could let us know what time is on the 8th of March, there's a special session on gender, I think.
Yes, ma'am. Same time, 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Okay. Thank you.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, screen is visible. Kindly do like full screen.
Okay,
Yes, it's visible.
thank you. So my topic is navigating the margins. Um, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Srija Mukherjee from TIS Mumbai. My topic is navigating the margins, intersectional barriers to inclusivity and empowerment of marginalized women in India. So, this study explores the intersectional barriers faced by women sex workers in India's red light districts of Sonagachi, focusing on their electoral inclusivity and vulnerabilities. And this research uses a mixed method approach, focusing on five key thematic areas, that is socioeconomic context, health and safety, access to justice and governance, social identity and discrimination, and empowerment and inclusion. Moving on to the introduction, this research examines the electoral exclusion of women sex workers. Despite India's commitment to universal suffrage, marginalized women face significant barriers to democratic participation due to their intersecting factors of gender, occupation, class, age, and social stigma. The rationale of the study is that this research explores the understudied intersection of sex work and electoral inclusivity in India, addressing significant knowledge gaps. It examines the barriers to political participation faced by sex workers, the impact of stigma, and the relevant legal frameworks. Problem statement is that despite constitutional guarantees of universal suffrage, women sex workers in major red light districts face systemic exclusion from democratic processes due to documentation challenges, institutional barriers, and societal stigma. These are the research objectives and the research questions of my study. I have included it in my paper, so I will try to skip this for now. Methodology and design is that I have used a mixed method study. This design enables the triangulation by combining numerical data with rich contextual insights, exploring both the what and the why of the research question. Now, topic for the means of literature review. The first one is the evolution of Indian democracy, a journey towards inclusive participation. India's democratic journey since 1950 has defied expectations, constitutional protections. Now, Levinson, Mukhopadhyay, Das, and Pule reveals complex state marginalized community dynamics, particularly for the sex workers. Gender-based violence is also a theme which we should explore. It has become a global challenge at present. Guru emphasizes voting as a moral dimension, Gopal Guru. This research underscores the need for comprehensive policies addressing the structural barriers and the individual agency for the marginalized community. Now, intersectionality, which is the main theme of my research in identity politics and sex work, Crenshaw's intersectionality theory reveals how sex workers experience overlapping forms of discrimination based on gender, occupation, class, and caste. Lerem and Brens highlight the gap between research and policy, advocating for approaches that recognize the diverse experiences within the sex industry and address the complex realities of the marginalized communities. Moving on to the evolution of the feminist perspectives on sex work. Feminist views sex work evolved from the second wave condemnation to diverse perspectives. Liberal feminists advocate for decriminalization, while the radical feminists see inherent exploitation in sex work. The historical evolution and the contemporary challenges of the sex work in India is that sex work in India evolved from the ancient Vesavasa or the prostitute households, where women functioned as autonomous social agents, to the respected tawayas of the Mughal era and the temple dedicated Devadasis. British colonialism transformed this landscape through stigmatizing legislation like the Contagious Diseases Act of 1864. Contemporary sex workers face what Srivastava terms consent to the lack of consent, entering the profession due to socio-economic vulnerabilities. Despite Supreme Court's recognition to the rights and advocacy by organizations like the Durbar Mahila
Teja, I'm so
Samanvay
sorry to
Committee,
interrupt, but 4 minutes are up.
discrimination person, I will wind up. Um, Here we can also look at the paradigm shift approach by Kuhn, that is the traditional paradigm of criminalization of sex work and moral judgment has given way to a new understanding that frames sex work as legitimate labor. And this is from the work of van der Meulen. Also from my research, I could understand the digital transformation and electoral inclusivity for sex workers in India. The digital space gives them a sense of anonymity, which creates a safer spaces for their political engagement. And this is particularly true for the younger generations. We see a generational divide in the digital literacy. Younger sex workers can effectively use digital platforms, while the older members face compound marginalization through digital exclusion. Um, this is another work which I studied beyond the public square, imagining the digital democracy, creating a more online spaces that do not merely replicate existing hierarchies and creating more or unequal distribution and creating more equitable spaces for everyone to be there. Now, another thing which I came across during my research and my fieldwork is the story of Cohort 2 in Kolkata. During the Durga Puja celebration, the soil from the Shonagachi region or soil from the brothels are taken to prepare the Durga idol. It is considered as Punnamati or sacred soil. And this soil collected by the priests from outside the brothels symbolize female energy and is believed to be crucial for the ideal's spiritual potency. The tradition may have originated as a means to include the social outcasts into religious festivities or to honor the Navkanyas. Yet, despite the symbolic recognition, sex workers face severe discrimination in their daily lives, lacking basic rights, documentation, and access to essential services. The formation of the National Advisory Committee on Inclusive Election, that is called the NACIE, represents a significant institutional commitment to addressing the electoral participation of marginalized communities, including sex workers, transgender individuals, and other vulnerable groups. There's a few photos from my fieldwork in the Shonagachi region of West Bengal, the Chunav Pathshala, which occurred last year in December in Shonagachi. Now, I would like to highlight some of my fieldwork experience. During my fieldwork in Shonagachi, Kolkata's largest red light district, I witnessed a community that defied simple categorization. As I walked through the narrow lanes, I encountered a vibrant social ecosystem where daily life unfolded with its own rhythms and hierarchies. From air-conditioned Nilkamal building, housing the higher-earning sex workers, to the cramped brothels below, the physical space itself told a story of social stratification. The most striking revelation was the devastating impact of the missing documentation. I met Subhadra, a 65-year-old woman who was trafficked here at the age of 6. Her trembling hands and tearful plea for help highlighted the crisis faced by these aging sex workers without official papers. Without IDs, they cannot access basic services like healthcare, banking, or government support schemes. Through my interactions with the Durbar Mahila Samanvay Committee, which is an NGO working in the region, I saw how community organizations provide crucial support networks. However, the fundamental challenge of documentation remains, trapping many in the cycle of systemic exclusion. My research points to the urgent need for policy reforms, particularly in recognizing alternative forms of identification for this vulnerable population. These are few of the awareness programs which were conducted by the CEO of West Bengal for the sex workers in Shonagachi. Um, Now, the transformative impact of former sex workers themselves, and this serves as a crucial lifeline for the community operating on multiple fronts to empower and protect its members. This is pictures from the voter registration drive at Shonagachi. And these are few of the initiatives, electoral inclusion initiatives taken by by the election office for the sex workers, by the CE office, by the DE office, district election office, or the booth level officers at the Chunav Pathshala implementation. Concluding, this research, through this research, I would like to highlight how gender intersects with occupational vulnerability to create unique patterns of political marginalization. The findings demonstrate that limited awareness and lack of identification documents serve as a primary barrier to electoral participation, rooted in broader systemic issues of social stigma, economic marginalization, and institutional discrimination. This research contributes to both the theoretical understanding of democratic exclusion and the practical policy solutions for promoting the inclusive participation. Ultimately, thus advancing more inclusive democratic practices in India. So that was all for my presentation. These are the references I used for my presentation. And thank you so much.
Shrija, have you included
Hello?
Ma'am, we lost your connection for a little bit.
I was just asking whether, Shrija, you have included child rights in this whole discourse.
Ma'am, I have not included child rights, but I have interacted during my fieldwork. I have interacted with the sex workers, and they told me that there has been a shift. Like previously, the sex workers' children were not, for them to get enrolled in the schools, they had to give their father's identity, and they were they told me that we used to give the babu's identity. They call them babus, their clients, babu's identity. But now that shift has occurred. Now their mother's identity is being recognized, their mother's work is being recognized, sex work is being recognized, and their children are getting enrolled in the schools.
And also under is right to RET applied, right to education applied to RT is applied to them. Another thing, are there SCDS centers in Sonagachi? How are they functioning? Are they given all the this thing right from a midday meal to inoculation, vaccination program, health checkup? Because ICDS centers elsewhere do that, no, for children. So all those facilities, services of the state instituted in that area.
Sir, ma'am, I couldn't, in Shonagachi, I couldn't witness any such centers there. I didn't see any such centers. But, ma'am, the Durbar Mahila Samanvay Committee, the NGO which is working there, they run their own health centers. Like, it's a private NGO, but they run their own health centers. They give, they told me that we try to vaccinate the children of sex workers too, so that and they told me an instance from COVID-19 that they effectively effectively managed the COVID situation and reduced the number of people getting affected due to COVID. So they are the people who are working, that NGO is working very effectively in that region.
So I think this mother's name being acceptable and school enrollment is not a problem. This you should end because that has been a long drawn fight. Because during
Yes.
70s they were not allowed, and NGOs used to run night schools or the schools night schools because mothers were busy at that time, so they were looking after children and also teaching them. But now I think they can have a formal schooling, so that you can, because now even the same issue comes when for the women prisoners' children, no. Because they
Yes.
also have a right to, they should not be confined in prison. They have a right to go to school. So now even in all the prisons in Maharashtra, children of prison, they go from prison to this thing, and they also have a facility for study. So that I think you can include.
Yes, ma'am, I will include that part.
Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am.
Very lot of exhaustive work. Very comprehensive.
Thank you.
Comments from Professor Indrani ji, ma'am, have any comments?
And I was going through Srija's
She was in
proposal.
touch with her.
Proposal,
Back-
and also
back and forth.
most of the time the non-governmental organizations, they are providing the kind of support and they're standing by them. Like we have an example of Ashodaya in Mysore.
Yeah,
It is good presentation, Srija.
very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Srija, for your presentation. So with this, I would like now to invite Professor Vibhuti Patel ji of the chair of this program to deliver the closing remarks for today's session.
Yeah, I think we had a very important session today because the person who are working at a ground level, both from the state and from the non-state, both the perspectives we got. And it is very important that we function at all three levels. One is a bottom-up approach and collective approach. Other one is that you become a change begins from you. That is very important. And also systems and structures we need to make, which are enabling and empowering to women. So I think these are the learnings that we had from all the deliberations we had, and also the kind of illustrations and case studies we got. Thank you very much, Dr. Purnima Chauhan. I thoroughly enjoyed, and Professor Indira, if you would like to say.
No, I really enjoyed Dr. Purnima's lecture, and she has given so many examples how it is important for women to come together, and how the systems are important, how the institutions are important. It's not just only empowering women and making them aware of things, but there should also be systems for them to exercise their agency. So it's a really excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. Purnima, and thanks to IMPRI for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's always been a delight being a part of this series.
You made a very good comment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The kind of experience that you have and the kind of illustration that you give, it actually inspires me. It whets my appetite for knowing more and more, because here I actually come across women who are working in the government, working in HIPAA, where I had the Gender Resources Center, and she has been tortured by her husband. Now she's into a second marriage. And, when she wanted answers, I said, you start handling the gender center, so that, the answers will come. I have no ready-made answers to give her. None.
All of us are learning from the experiences, coming up with the strategies.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your remarks. So this concludes the day 9 of Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship Cohort 2.0. So with this, I would like to move to formal vote of thanks as we end to the day 9th of the Young Women Leaders in Public Policy Fellowship Cohort 2.0, an online national winter school program, a 4-month online immersive introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program. I, Sana Ansari, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI Gender Impact Studies Center, New Delhi. We would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Vibhuti Patel ji Professor M. Indira ji, and Dr. Purnima Chauhan ji for joining us today and providing valuable insight for this program with their esteemed presence as well. We thank all our participants who have raised important questions and actively participated throughout today's deliberation. Reading for the session will be shared within your emails, and video of this session will also be shared for your future learnings. We eagerly await your presence in the upcoming session scheduled every Sunday and for the special session on March 8th on the occasion of International Women's Day. We are grateful if you're watching later on YouTube or listening to us on various podcasts or reading our publication. We hope you continue to join in for future IMPRI web policy talk and web policy learning programs as well. Wishing you a very good evening and thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sana.
Sana, for conducting the session so seamlessly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka ji. Also.